Tariq, thank you so much. Well, it's very appropriate to speak after Tariq and Koenigsegg because we have made quite an announcement in Geneva a month ago. Thank you all for coming. My name is Victor Mueller. I'm the founder and CEO of Spyker. And what we did in Geneva is we introduced, for the first time since I started the company back in 2000, we introduced a new engine partner. All of our cars, so far, 267 have been built, show the beautiful Audi V8 that we had, 4.2 liter. Great engine, nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't very bespoke. And it was always a bit of a setback for us that we had such a hand-built, beautiful, bespoke car, but not such a bespoke engine. So a few years ago, Christian and myself, we started more or less at the same time, in 2000, as did Pagani. And guess what? These three companies are still here. We started discussions about the possibility of having a, let's say, detuned version of his 1360 horsepower twin turbo engine in our cars. And I was very proud to announce at the Geneva Salon, where we signed the engine supply agreement, that all of our cars, all the Preliators, the coupes that we introduced here last year, and the Spyders will have the Koenigsegg 5 liter 600 horsepower normally aspirated engine. It is available in a hand-shifted 6-speed, which makes it the only car over 500 horsepower you can buy nowadays with a manual gearbox. And trust me, out of all the cars we've sold so far, 50 coupes and almost 50 Spyders now, of which we're only going to build 100, virtually every buyer has opted for the manual gearbox. And that is not a surprise, and it makes me really happy, because I'm a car guy, and I love to drive a car with a manual gearbox. And when we saw the production end of the first series cars, the C8 Spyder and the C8 La Violette, which were all hand-shifted, we came up with the aileron. And the aileron was a car which primarily we sold with an automatic. Our customers insisted, let's say, 10 years ago, we come up with an automatic. So we made it. And if anybody would have asked me 10 years ago that the manual would make a comeback with a vengeance, I would have laughed, right? But who would have thought that we would see Brexit, right? Nobody. So you see the most awkward things. And we see a phenomenal return of the manual gearbox. If you see what happens at Porsche, if they make 999 cars of the R with the manual gearbox, they sell at twice sticker price. That's basically what's happening in the marketplace. Really enthusiastic car connoisseurs are buying manuals again. So the Preliator with the manual gearbox is what we sell right now. You can get an automated manual transmission, but we're not encouraging anybody to buy that. But we're getting some orders for it, primarily from the Middle East, actually. But in any event, American buyers, invariably buying the manual. So with this Koenigsegg, which is, 600 horsepower from 5 liters, that is a serious engine. And it revs 8,000 rounds per minute. You can only imagine how that's going to sound with a flat crank. It's going to be a sensational engine. It's basically built totally for us. Christian it's so sad he's not here today, because he would have told you what I am now telling you, and you would have heard it from the horse's mouth, which we did in Geneva, where he came to our stand and talked about the engine himself. So I have to play his role now too, which is hard because I have no clue how he does it with his engines. But what I can tell you is that the Koenigsegg engine is developed entirely by Koenigsegg. They make their own blocks, they make their own cylinder heads. Every single part of that engine is Koenigsegg made. And in our specific case, they have, of course, used the same block, same heads, but basically detuned it. First of all, by taking the turbochargers off, but also by using, let's say, slightly, I wouldn't say lower quality, but parts that don't need to take 1360 horsepower, right? It's still a gem, and it's very expensive, but it's very beautiful. And our customers, because initially we sold all of the Preliators with the Audi engine, with the supercharger, 525 horsepower. And we sold all 50 of them in a heartbeat. So we went back to our customers and said, guess what? Car's going to be a little bit more expensive. but you're going to get a 600 horsepower Koenigsegg engine. What's your verdict? Well, we didn't get any cancellations. On the contrary, people are flocking to the brand because now we have a really bespoke engine in a really bespoke car. So having said that, the Preliator is our first car with a full carbon body. This particular one is the first of the series. It's still aluminium, handmade, but the production cars all have carbon bodies, and they will be just over 3,000 pounds. Very light, 600 horsepower, Lotus-made suspension, so this thing will go like a bat out of hell. And that's really what it's all about. Like the Koenigsegg's, these are driver's cars. These are cars you take out on a weekend and you go to the countryside and you enjoy the car to its fullest. The design language is very much in line with Spyker heritage. Of course, I've designed all the cars from the outset, so it's not a surprise to see how the car has evolved. Our very first cars had air inlets, basically based, air scoops, which were like beautiful aluminium polished sculptures. Then on the ailerons, we went to more like turbine inlets. And on the Preliator, we're toning our design a little bit further down. And now we have so-called NACA ducts everywhere in the car. These NACA ducts are very efficient. And of course, we did all the aerodynamic testing with them. And they work extremely well. And they're very flush. So they're very beautiful as an integrated part of the design. The car comes with what we call turbofan wheels. And of course, the typical bespoke Spyker interior. If we ever get any praise in the international media for our interiors, it is because of the tremendous attention to detail. This car has a turned aluminium dashboard, something I didn't invent. The Spykers from the 1920s all had turned aluminium dashboards. Of course, it shows the Spyker logo, which is the propeller in the wire wheel. Goes back to 1914, when Spyker merged with the Dutch aircraft manufacturing company. And some bright mind added to that logo, nulla tenacity in via est via, which is Latin for the tenacious, no road is impassable. For anyone who has followed our history in recent years, that is a very appropriate logo. The car comes with a full electric soft top. It has an aluminium space frame and a carbon fiber body, as I said. What we also introduced in this car, we've always been struggling to not incorporate a huge screen in the car because it takes away from the beautiful classic interior. And we're very fortunate that we found a partner who has developed a head-up display which is hand operated. So basically you move your hand in front of the eye of the camera and it will react. And this head-up display, you will see it in the car, basically takes all the functions that in other cars would be in a huge screen. So we can do without the screen, keep the original beautiful dashboard and integrate the head-up display. Other than that, the car of course has a lot of aviation-inspired details. In Geneva we had a beautiful turntable, but here you will have to come to the stand and see the rear end of the car with the very much jet-inspired rear lights and the typical Spyker rear end treatment. The Spider has, and I haven't seen it on any other cars yet, the leather running onto the tonneau, quilted in honeycomb stitching, and on the side of the tonneau you can read the Spyker script, nulla tenacity in via est via. I would very much like to thank Brian Miller, Manhattan Motors, for having us here again this year, and the organization of the New York Auto Show. Without them, we wouldn't be here. It was an exceptionally cordial invitation to come here again this year, and this stand has undergone a massive change compared to last year. It really looks the part, and we're very proud to be here in the company of Rimac, Koenigsegg, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini, and Bugatti. I mean, what show of force is that in the high-end, in the super and hypercar market? Historically, Spyker has sold in excess of 50% of our products in America. And Brian Miller was our very first dealer in America. Back in 2003, we just started production and we hadn't even been US certified. I came to New York and I met Brian and his father, Richard, and you can imagine, right, how many people walk into a Manhattan showroom and say, listen, I want to sell you something, right? They must go crazy over that. And, but I was invited, I got a cup of coffee, and I explained what I wanted to do with Spyker. And Brian's father looked at his son and he said, what do you think? Shall we give this kid a chance? I looked much younger then. I didn't have a Formula One team then yet. So he said, do you want to give this kid a chance? And they said, yeah. So they became our first dealer in 2003, 2 years before we got certified in America, and have been our largest dealer ever since. They've got 8 Predators on order out of the 50 we're building. So this puts things in perspective, right? And it's not going to be very much different with this Predator Spyder. We're only going to build a 100, and I can assure you a very large number will find its way to clients here in the New York area. I would be very glad to take any questions right now. Please. Anyone for questions?
A Y Spyder or an I Spyder?
A Y Spyder, like the way it should be written. We are going to do, after Rimax press conference, we're going to do an interview, the 3 of us, Rimax, Koenigsegg and Spyker, right over there. So any questions you may have, maybe come up then. Well, thank you so much for your attention, and I'll gladly give the microphone to Monica of Rimac.